guess, yeah. So in that talk, he talked about the beginning of humans starting in Atlantis in the area, and saying that the original human was a female hermaphrodite, and that aliens came and basically, or not, I don't know if we want to say aliens or God or whatever, came and basically split it to half. Not really, it's I guess it's not like the Bible says as far as the rib, but it was saying that basically he said there was first hermaphrodites, but then spiritually for growth, it made more sense to separate and have, I guess, positions or like roles to each side to make spiritual growth go faster.
Yeah. I think I've heard something similar to that. I've heard about the Atlantean theory, but I don't think I've ever heard of like gender being brought into it.
I've heard that before though, I think. I don't know from who, I can't remember. The whole idea of like, he never used the word hermaphrodite. So
Yeah.
the person that I saw, he never used the word hermaphrodite. He said that it was like, it was one, and then they were split, and they were sent off to find each other again.
Kind of like a soulmate story.
Soulmate story, yeah.
Or twin flame, whatever you want to call it.
So that's what that's the way I had heard that kind of.
That way, yeah.
I had only heard it that way.
And technically it's the same in a way.
Did he use the word hermaphrodite, or did he?
He used it. Well, I guess he used it to explain it.
Yeah.
He didn't say that was what it is, but he definitely used it to explain it, saying it was our hermaphroditic nature.
Yeah.
So.
And people find that word like problematic now, and I think that it was like back then there was no like non-binary term, like something like that.
Right,
you know?
to just, yeah.
So that's what they were trying to get the analogy across, that it was encompassing everything. It wasn't just, you know, this masculine entity that we were kind of indoctrinated
It makes
to.
me ask, like, why duality now? Yeah, like, why is the separation? The only thing that comes to mind is always lesson, or like learning from duality, because duality is an illusion, at least in how I view it, it's an illusion. So it's like, to me, I have to look at it almost like as a teaching mechanism made to teach us something.
Do you think it teaches us something because it's a form of recollection? Because I think of duality, I always use like the yin and the yang analogy for it, and I think that like what we were speaking on last time about kind of reincarnation and that kind of idea is like recollecting things, so like learning lessons, using duality and identifying with our masculine energy and our feminine energy. Do you think that's a form of recollection from either the source?
I think it's a mirroring in a way.
Oh,
like,
okay, yeah.
I feel like I don't, like, at least how I view it is that we all first have to, not even first, but I think we have to find that union in ourselves first between masculine and feminine, and then it becomes like a mirroring when you find it physically. So it's like, that's why sometimes I can think it can be a hindrance to not know yourself, or at least experience a lot of things. I don't know. That's also my last time experience. Like, do you need experience? Like, it's like, whoa, like, I don't know.
I have kind of, not a problem. Problem is a negative word, I guess, but I have an issue with when you speak to people about masculine and feminine energy, they automatically kind of jump to the physical appearance first, and it's like traditionally and psychologically, like what Freud and Carl Jung, when they spoke about masculine and feminine energy, they were talking about traits within ourselves, like what's like a feminine trait, like intuition and nurturing. Versus like masculine energy is structure and it's very like characteristic things that it doesn't really have to do with you know, the way you look or the way your personality is. It's just the characteristics that you yeah, and that you embody and that you try to balance. Like, you want to be structured, but you also want to be nurturing, and you want to be, you know, emotional, but you also want to be rational. So it's that where I have an issue where people automatically assume, like, oh, you're in touch with your feminine side, like you're.
It's almost like, why aren't you? Like, you know, it's like, why aren't you?
I'm like, and you're not. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, do you think that society purposely made it like that for people to view it that way?
So I think that we did that. I think
not just like the top people like promoting.
No, I think that we did that, and then they're like, oh, that, like, I feel like the top people still are like, you know, powers that be or whatever, still like use it against us.
Right.
They weaponized it against us, but I think initially
we gave into that idea.
They just saw like, these guys, dude, we know how they are. Let's just flood them with that. Let's just make it, you know. But I think that as far as like maybe like the products that they like, you know, that they sell us and things like that, not necessarily like, and then the way they sell us the same thing like on TV, the way that they write the shows, because they know that if we saw a character that was like this, we wouldn't want to watch it because it goes against like our nature.
I have a question though. I've heard men say this whenever the idea or the topic of a woman president. You know, this is so cliche, but like I've heard this so many times from really smart people too. It's like, why would you want a woman who once every month can't hold herself together, and you want her in charge of a nuclear button? Like, what if she wakes up one day, she's having a bad day, you know what I mean? Like, and her emotions take over, and you want that person running the country? Like, and I feel like that ideology has been kind of watered down to us because we've only seen men in charge. It's like, okay, well, sorry, I don't want a guy who's fucking his secretary and not really focusing, you know what I mean? Like, there have been shitty presidents that are men that have been distracted by very masculine things. And it's like, but we're not looking at that. We're looking at how the women's
can be overly feminine.
Exactly. And that's what makes me wonder, like, was it us or was it a combination of both? Of like the ideology of men in power and also products being sold to us, marketing, how we treat each other, how we're raised, all of that.
Yeah, so I think back again, I think we chose it and then they used it. Like, you know what I mean? I would say the same thing. It's like, well, not that we chose it.
You chose the
not that we chose it, but it kind of like, I just think about like cave people.
That's what I was thinking about. I was like, they saw that, okay, I'm more dominant physically in this way. I must be the dominant force. You know, like I must be the thing, right? And it kind of, I think that kind of.
But then again, we never saw cave people.
Right.
They only told us what the cave people were like and who did what and what those roles were. We never saw the cave people. They only told us what they do and what they were like.
Yeah, but I also think of Native Americans. And we have Native Americans still in this country, you know, and still very much in their culture, very much in their
technology.
Exactly, and they still kind of have those traditional views on man and woman, and I'm not saying in a negative way, but just, you know, we can see that.
Yeah, even if you just think as far as like recorded history of what the roles seem to be from our recorded history.
The only time in history that I've ever seen a woman up in rank is
Egyptians.
And I thought about that, I'm just like, and I'm like, when we go to like, when we think about what Beyonce's telling us, it's like, I guess they were saying on that film too, is like the only way we'll be able to live in harmony is once we put women as equals to us, or not view them as something that's.
Okay, so this is where I want.
But equal in a different way. I was saying,
okay,
equal in a different way.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I guess she was saying like, it's not always
And you agree?
the regular way of us looking at what equal is, as far as like the man making money and doing this or doing that, and then the woman nurturing. Sometimes it's just more so just in general in thought too, like where you lack in thought, they might not. So it's like that equal.
That's so it's like you can't have if you have too much of one, it's imbalance. Like equal is in, like you said, duality.
Yeah.
We need to balance duality.
I feel that. I just think about like, do you remember when we were watching Game of Thrones and you know, Jon goes to the wall, right? And he keeps like throwing out ideas that are good to the Lord Commander or whatever there, right? And the Lord Commander keeps like shutting them down. And he's like, what the hell? And then at a certain point when they're all about to die, the Lord Commander tells them like, you know, the thing is that when you're a leader, when you're the designated leader, everybody's going to question you. Everybody's going to ask you, are you sure you're doing the right thing? Are you sure? And the moment that you start to question yourself is when shit starts to hit the fan. And I think...
So you think there's no room as a leader to...
That's not what I said.
No, I'm not asking. No.
What I'm saying is that I think that as a leader, we don't always practice that. We're not always taught that we're supposed to practice that that's like a part of being a leader. A lot of times you're kind of just thrown in this leadership role, or you just become a leader somehow because, you know, you get a girlfriend and now she, you know, is like, well, you know, like, you know, I don't know, can you do this or whatever. And then you have a kid and the kid's like, you know, and you're just like, oh shit, now you're this leader. And then they're also like, hey, can you do this? But like, also, are you sure? And then you're like, dude, no, like, you know, trust me. And then it just goes down to like that. It's like,
that is true.
It turns into
that
toxic masculinity today.
Okay, thank you. That is so true, but I'm so glad you brought up that point, because whenever people say equality, that's when when feminists, radical feminists, bring up this idea of equality, I'm like, do you really want that?
Everything?
Yeah,
I can make up that too.
Like, I'm sorry, like, I'm all for women having equal pay, obviously, you know what I mean? Women have equal opportunity, all of that pretty obvious stuff. But when it comes down to equality, as far as like, okay, like, I like my man taking out the trash. Like, or like, I'm not gonna expect me to punch my dude in the face and not, instinctually him want to hit me back. Like, I'm sorry, that's just human nature, man or woman. If you get attacked, you're gonna want to defend yourself. And that's where I have a problem, is like, some of these radical feminists
takes away from, you think, responsibilities too, and different,
and take it to like the extreme of like, almost, you're not talking about equality here. You're kind of talking about like superiority.
Too. Like, is that even some? I don't know how people think about that nowadays. Like, do some women even like chivalry anymore?
How there's an imbalance with men, like being too, you know.
I got this.
Yeah, and then there's an imbalance with women being like, no, not wanting literally anything from men. But it's not about that you need it. You know what I mean? Like, cause
like people do really still, even though it's like a pretty
cooking and cleaning,
thing. I think it's just like, I've learned that people have a big thing about cooking, like, and that whoever works, or like, I don't know, that's the thing, it's like, okay, what if you both work and you both are tired at the end of the day? Like, what makes it right for a woman to have to cook now?
Going Dutch on a date. Okay, so being in LA, like, no one in Hollywood has just money, like, that's the thing about Hollywood, like, it's this facade, like, everyone's wearing designer, but no one has money. It's so weird. So, like, you're going on a date and you're expecting this guy to go, like, to pay for your whole date, but you're talking about equality. And I'm like, no, like, if you really want shit to be equal, pay for your own food. I don't know why I think of like petty things like that, but I just see that in peers of mine, I guess.
I saw a meme recently, and it was like about a girl. It was a girl posted it about a girl, and it said something, I don't know, it wasn't even that good of a meme. It was just like a picture of a cartoon girl, and it was like her thinking with like a thinking bubble, and the thinking bubble said something like, my butt's too nice to have a guy Cash App request me for half of everything or something like that, right? And I was just thinking like, man.
So that's what I'm.
I just thought about it like, man, like, you know, when I'm like, you know, your butt's that nice. Your expectations of the kind of man you want to attract are of that. You're gonna attract a man maybe that also has high expectations. What else besides your nice butt do you bring to the table? Like, there's no way that's gonna be the
deciding factor.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, okay, you know what I mean? It's like, if you want a guy that's like this, you gotta also be able to do
Isn't it strange in music and hip hop nowadays? Female artists are promoting how to get an 8-figure like guy, or like it's almost promoting like how women can scheme their way into a relationship in a way. I'm just like, where is that going to lead us? Like, because I think that's going to take us even further from loving each other. Yeah.
Think about the idea as far as lyrics being almost like spells.
Yeah.
Would you say that they are like counterbalancing all the effect that the male lyrics have done for the past 20 years or 25 years?
I think literally about the song "We Won the World," girls. Like I remember I watched that video and I'm just thinking about it. And I watched the Super Bowl performance. I'm like, what she's promoting can be dangerous in a way, but I didn't look at it at that point either of the counterbalancing, because to me it's just like eye for an eye.
I don't look at it as counterbalancing. I'm looking at it that they're working towards the same goal to different audiences. Because I feel that there are artists out there that are doing positive, are doing light work with their spells, right? Like I think of like Janae and Kaylani and
What you mean that's it? It's like you don't know about Janae doing.
Janae, Kaylani, some would say Beyonce, like those Erykah Badu, like those women, right? Like they're doing light work versus like the women counterparts of the men that are doing toxic work. Like not hating because I love her, but like Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, like those figures are kind of spreading the same message just to different people. They're spreading the same shit that all these other guys.
I think Sweetie even said in her recent song, like she said something like basically like we can have sex if you're a money making bitch, and I was like, that's interesting that she called men bitches. Like I was like, whoa, like.
Yeah.
But but I was like, damn, she kind of did something there, whether she like really thought about it or not. But it's like, it's just interesting to see a woman say that.
Now I think about it though, was it really that bad what they were saying this whole time?
Who?
Anybody, both of them, because I feel like in the same way,
you take it that
it's almost no. It's like calling them out. It's like. All these rappers are saying were, yeah, if you are this kind of way, I'm only going to treat you this kind of way. So as a woman, if I'm hearing that, I'm like, okay, that's not me. I'm not going to be that kind of way. I don't want to be treated that kind of way. And as a man, same thing. Like for instance, like if you think about a rap lyric that says something like, you know, rap lyric that says something like, okay, like, you know, I don't know, I can't think of anything right now super misogynistic that would like encapsulate what I'm trying to say. But
bitches get money.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Even something like that, it's like okay, like you in a way, like who can't agree with that?
Nicki Minaj says, if you can't fuck 3 times a night, peace.
That's another.
And we're all like, yes, bitch. No offense, but like that's setting like a really weird standard for men, dude. I think about that line, I'm like, that's a really odd thing, right? Like
I think that's fine.
Very personal. It's like, okay, if that's what you do, like cool, but everybody is on that tip, like.
But I think it's a good thing that like she exaggerated it that far. Like she exaggerated it that far just because of all the times that, in a way, like I said, it's been exaggerated in the opposite sense. Like when guys say, "I'm gonna stretch you out" or some shit, like it's like, what the hell do you mean?
I'm scared. Okay, so this kind of like segues into what I wanted to talk about. Really wanted want to talk about when we brought up Kanye was responsibility. So, I was just thinking of the sense of like how everyone, man, woman, no matter what color, someone is upset at what Kanye's saying, right? Like we were talking about it last time. And I just think about when are we gonna take responsibility for our own minds and our own decision-making capabilities.
Which is literally what he's trying to teach.
Exactly. To not only, like you said, watch the full video and not just watch clips of it, or read tweets about clips of it, or see memes about clips of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or complex Instagram posts about it, whatever it may be. But like, when are we gonna take responsibility to like do all of the work, and you still may not agree,
but you understand.
But you understand, and like what you said, like you can kind of see what he's getting at. And I feel like if we were all to take responsibility in doing the work to understand, even if we don't agree, we would see the intent.
Yes.
We wouldn't misconstrue the intent, and we wouldn't misconstrue the message. We still might not agree with the message, but we would still say that, like, okay, I
yeah, because like when I bring up different
deliberated
things,
and I still don't agree, but it's cool because he's not trying to do harm.
And then if you try to defend him, you turn into a Kanye stan or
like a super fan. Someone called
that's
me
like
super fan
that's
the
like
other
something
day.
people like when people say that. But I look again at things as like macro, micro. Like I have my own world, yes, the micro, but these celebrities are showing us an example of like on a world level how things are like thought about in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when you look at, and this is why I specifically do look into Drake and Kanye's, because they have totally different worlds, and you have totally different audiences that look for different things, and like, but then you have those people that also cross, and they're like, I understand both, like, and then you might understand both, but you still might not like either one either. Like,
yeah,
I guess what I'm getting to is like, Kanye brings up stuff, and then we have these conversations, and I feel like that's literally even as a Gemini, that's his job. It's almost to
as a thinker, right? Like as a philosopher, like as a contemporary philosopher, as one of the biggest philosophers. That's probably controversial in a sense to some people too, calling him that, but like as a thinker of our lifetime. Isn't that his job to get us to think?
Do you think the flaw of us not or forgetting what real spirituality is made philosophers?
What?
Do you think like the misinformation of what we already know from a long time ago, since it's so like so many different stuff now? That's where philosophers came in to like just start questioning.
I think philosophy came from wonder. I mean, at least that's what Socrates said, and I feel like philosophy, I guess in ancient Greece, and there was corruption going on and stuff like that kind of induced deeper thought. But I don't know. What do you think?
I guess my thing is more so. I think that if there wasn't information, that leads to asking things to get information. So I feel like there's just a case of history where telephone happens, where we miss information, and that leads us to ask these different things to get back to.
So obviously there's like eras of philosophy, right? Like there's like literally like ancient philosophy, postmodern, and then there's like, but then there's even subcategories like nihilism, existentialism, all of that, like contemporary philosophy. Do we just think that like after, who was like a really recent philosopher, like
Mills?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so do we just think like after Mills, like there's no more philosophers? Like who do we think is doing?
Oh, like the last.
That's what I was gonna
like
say.
Who do we think is philosophizing right now? Besides, you know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
At a high level, like it's the Kanyes.
Yeah,
it's the Luffes. It's the
rappers, because you know, it's easy to say musicians, but I think there's very few musicians who fit so many words into things.
It's words.
Or fit so many ideas, like, or more concrete, or try to arrive at more concrete.
It's linguistics. All philosophers are linguistics, right? Like, you have to write. You have to be able to write, and you have to be able to articulate your ideas in literature.
Do you think with music it makes you feel it a different way, though? Like, especially when you hear something, you're just like, damn, the music it hits, and it's like, my body gets a chill, and you're just like, whoa.
Yes, but these guys take it even further than music. They use their linguistic skills, like, in their South Carolina rallies, and their Instagram lives, and their podcasts, and their Instagram posts, and things like that. Like, they take it past their music, and I think that's what makes them philosophers in our lifetime. It's like, they're past artists. They're philosophers because they engage
I would say
linguistically.
Other than Kanye, though, I would say as a lyrical person, I would say J. Cole would be the most philosophical as far as mainstream goes.
Like musically, or like
no, just more so like what he tries to accomplish with his lyrics.
Okay, like, so I see that, but I would have to disagree and say Kendrick definitely beats J. Cole in that sense.
I think J. Cole is more simplistic to where everyone can hear what he's trying to get.
I don't listen to J. Cole really. I don't. You know, every time I do, I used to a lot, and every time I do, I just think like, I just feel like unsatisfied. You know, like I'm like, okay, that's fine. And now I don't like hold any like really expectations for him other than making enjoyable music versus making like thought-provoking thing. Like now I just think of like, okay, am I gonna enjoy this song?
Did you hear what he said?
I don't do that, but if, like, for instance, I have nephews who are like 12 years old and like 9 years old. I'm like, I'll play J. Cole for them.
Yeah.
I want them to think about that stuff because to them they might be like, hey, what's going on there?
But we've talked about this is like how J. Cole might be necessary for someone's journey to get to a J Electronica.
I'm saying what I'm saying is like what he did was necessary because I do feel like No Name says these things and does these things, I guess, with the expectation that people do know it, or it's like basically what he said is if you're only talking to the people that already know what you're talking about, then what are we doing? What's the point? And that's what I think is important and that's why he said I think it's better to talk to people like children because if we assume that they don't know these things, then that's the better way to go about it.
Well, that's really interesting.
I really like that. The only thing is that I think about the roles. Is that who's gonna keep challenging my thoughts?
Well, that's not J. Cole's job.
I know.
But
That's fine.
Doesn't the student also teach the teacher?
Yeah, I get that, but I'm never going to. When am I going to be around J. Cole? Or am I the student, or what am I? What do you mean? Because I'm just what I meant to say.
What I'm saying is, if you said who's going to be challenging your thoughts, and what I'm saying is, when you're teaching something, you'll learn after things coming back from it.
But everybody, like for instance, like professors and stuff, they read other people to like kind of like yeah, exactly. And to me, whenever I don't know, I forgot because I
think that life can't sharpen your sword.
No, yeah, and it does. But what I'm saying is, I spend so much time listening to music because I enjoy it that I think like, man, like
you want to.
I don't. Like at this point in my life, I don't feel like. I know how easy it is to go find enjoyable music. I know how easy that is. It's hard for me to find enjoyable music that will challenge me to think. And when I think about that, I'm like, yeah, I get that he says that, and I feel like his role, and he executes his role really well. Now that I think of it that way, I'm like, wow, like, you know, great job. But in my eyes, I'm like, okay, who's gonna, and that's when I think of like the Lupes, the J Electronicas, the Jay-Z still, the Kanyes, they all do, even though Kanye has a much more simplistic way.
But don't you understand, like, those people are so far in knowing stuff that them bridging the gap isn't as possible as
no, they're not bridging the gap. That's not their goal. That's not their thing.
He's not trying to bridge the gap.
No,
I don't know. He does sometimes. I feel like he does sometimes, but I don't think that's his goal. I think his goal is always to like advance, like to break new ground.
Because like I think that everyone has a role. Like J. Cole's role is to, you know, he's kind of like the foundation of conscious rap. If you want to make it like very cliche or like very generic, right? Like if you want to dive into conscious rap, you're gonna, if it's like you're someone you only ever listen to Lils or like never even listen to rap at all.
Like,
but you like, you know
yeah.
what? You want to get into some good shit, start with, you know, J. Cole shit. Once you feel like you know, if this
Some early Wale.
yeah, and then you go to like the Kendricks, and then you go, and then maybe, the Joey, the Earls, things like that, and then maybe you'll be ready for Kendricks, and maybe you'll be ready for
I think I was just like offended in a weird way, because like I was listening to all these guys like Talib and Mos Def and Black Thought and Jay-Z and even like the earlier J. Cole stuff and the Kendricks and Jay Electronica for a long time, that when they started telling me like, oh yeah, J. Cole's, you know, woke rap, and I was like, yeah, and then I would listen to it and I'd be like, okay, it's not that woke. What's going on? Hold on. Like, I started getting confused. I was like, whoa. Like, but because that's because I was already like somewhere else.
I think J. Cole has to play as an artist where you're almost limited at that. Like, what if his fan base isn't ready for the wokeness that you're trying to say? Like, maybe he has always had that, but he's had to groom these people.
I think that's what makes him genius. That's what he's obviously gone through this journey. Like, he's human too, right? And he's had realizations from here to here that he's still probably trying to even figure out himself, and then to like try to make that digestible to his fan base and have them grow with him, I think is genius. Versus like just jumping ship and going here, and everyone's like, what's the hell, you know?
You would lose him.
In that interview that you guys showed me with Daylight, it almost felt like Daylight was emotional when he was saying, like, when he used to ask Drake, why don't you make this music?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
it
I
almost
told him
seemed
about
like
that.
it was personal. Like, it almost seemed like
Daylight keeps saying like no, like I'm here and we're here to do this. We're here to do like light work.
Right.
And when I ask him and he says like,
since
nah. it's like bro, it's like a heart.
You're making a conscious decision.
And then what I wanted to talk to you about that was like, whenever he was like, and then he comes out with God's plan, which we find out later that Daylight wrote, well, I don't know if he wrote the whole thing, but was responsible for God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then Vlad was like, God's plan's not about God. That song's not about God. That song's about him. And Daylight was like, exactly. But he has people singing the lyrics like it's about God, like in the praying hand logo and shit. And he's like, and that's not about God. That's about him. And he's like,
and
you
the
know.
praying hand logo's 2 high fives.
People were outraged by philosophers during their time, and it wasn't until they were dead that people were reading their shit and they were like, damn, he was onto something.
And we can't go on from it now because
exactly. And think about Kanye now, like everyone literally hates him. Not everyone, but vast majority of population thinks he's crazy or stupid or whatever.
I just try to get people to always use this in a way of like, thank you. I like for people to always remember their religion if that's the case. Like, okay, if you're a Christian, if you're this and that, think about Jesus.
Yep.
Think about the level of scrutiny and like people saying that he was crazy. And like could you imagine? And then we're bashing someone like Kanye? Like, it's not even to say that. It's just more so like if you feel like I feel like most people should know that he has good intention. I just don't understand how people don't see that.
But I feel that their argument would be like, oh, now you're comparing Kanye to Jesus Christ, and my response would be like, yes, because like we talked about last time.
I compare everybody. I mean, I compare myself. Like, it's not even comparison. It's like it says that we should want to walk in his steps. Like we should want to be like Jesus. So. Yeah, like that's ultimate comparison. Like,
yeah, my response would be like, yes. Not only just for the simple thing of what we were speaking about last time about the idea of crucifixion.
Right.
And I'd be like, well, aren't you guys crucifying him like he's Jesus?
That's what, yeah.
So inevitably, in actuality, you're comparing him to Jesus the way you're crucifying the man. So why am I not to look at him in that light?
Exactly.
You know?
If you're able to judge him.
Like he's Jesus, literally.
And God is supposed to be the only judge. Like, I'm just like, damn, like, well, I don't know. Like, It's just crazy to me. I guess Kanye to me has never done anything to make people think that he's an evil person. Because Kanye's bigger than the backpack and the Louis Vuitton shoes.
But see, that's the thing. Like, I even think about those things, and I think about how at the time that's what he thought was what made people.
But it made his world like that's almost crazy how you can shape your world to think that is a crazy thing to be hyped about.
But dude, on Pablo, everyone hated I Love Kanye, right? Like that track?
Yeah.
Dude, that track is like some shit, right? It's like, you guys want me to go back to that programming and that shallow shit. That's what you guys want? Really? Do you even really love me?
I didn't know how to say it. But I thought like the same thing. I was like, dude, like when people say like I miss old Kanye, like I think of old Kanye like as sleep Kanye. Like that Kanye was hella asleep.
Yeah.
After the Taylor Swift thing, it was long gone. Like.
But you know what? I feel like I identify with Kanye and I grew closer to him in a sense because I felt that it happened at the same time with him as it was happening with me. Like, when I was kind of realizing this shit is a simulation and he was saying things that were like confirming my thoughts, I was like,
yo,
I love this guy.
That Zane Lowe interview to me to this day is like
one,
the best one. The one
with
he hit a gold chain and the girl like I'm just like this is like one of the best Kanye interviews.
Yeah, dude. And even just like something as simple as his tweets, like what people were calling rants. When he was doing that, I was just like, wow, like thank you. Like someone is saying some real shit that I've been thinking about that I'm kind of scared to like talk to someone about, and he's over here. You know, I was 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, and he was saying this shit, and that's why I think I have like, I want to protect him.
And that's low-key why what he says when he's like, oh yeah, there's other people that feel like how I feel about the Trump thing, and it's just like they're just too scared to say stuff. Like, and it's just like. But Kanye's kind of showing just on all levels how that works.
Yeah.
I'm just too scared to
and
say.
I think
everybody is kind of
Definitely, it's a piece
scared. Yeah.
And that's what, and I think that's his point is like this thing surpasses color and gender. This thing is an intellectual thing. This thing is a
forever thing.
A forever thing, an infinite thing, right? And like, you guys are still over here talking about black and white when I'm over here talking about light. You know what I mean?
Kind
and
of travel to different
exactly.
worlds and shit.
And, okay, so that's why, bringing up like the D.L. Hughley thing, like his biggest thing was, he said, if you do something, I don't know if he said as a black man or just as a person in general, if you do something that confirms racist people's bias towards racism, then it's fuck you forever. That's what he said. Those are like, as verbatim as I can get. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something like that. It was like, if you justify racist people's beliefs, then fuck you forever. And I was like, damn, like that's pretty crazy.
I saw an interview recently where they're like, it was, I can't remember who it was, but they went into his house and he had a poster of himself. And they were like, why do you have that poster of yourself in your own house? And Kanye said, like, if I'm not cheering for myself, no one else will. I have to cheer for myself first. I have to be a fan of myself first.
That's right.
And I think about that with Russ. It's like, dude.
You today. Yeah.
But like, I think about that with Russ is that if he didn't love himself, literally no one would love him. But people love him. But people love him because he loves himself and he is talented. You know, he is talented.
I would say that
and
he
people
definitely
shit on
is
him. I'm like,
talented.
dude, who else is doing
But
what he's
low-key,
doing?
it's like we said, it's like there are like a group of people that are like this, right? It's like I feel like even the Childish Gambinos are kind of like this too. And maybe that's just a symptom, or maybe that's just something you have to have, like you said, to be that type of artist on a Kanye level. Maybe you just have to have that sense of arrogance a little bit. I don't want to call it arrogance. I don't like that word.
Confidence?
It's not really confidence either to me, though. At least the way Russ presents it.
To me,
It's
it's past confidence.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't give a fuck if everyone in this room thinks I'm corny. I don't care.
Right.
See,
I think he does a little bit.
But I feel like I don't think Kanye does that. like I think Kanye's thing is like that. I don't know. Like even when he's like super confident and cocky or whatever, he's really not corny. It's kind of like actually kind of dope. Honestly, I thought about this the other day when we were watching that video. We were watching Joe Budden podcast, and they were talking about Gucci Mane and who and T.I. and their beef or whatever. Jeezy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jeezy.
And Ma was like, you know, I'm at the point right now that I don't beef with anybody black. Like, I don't know, like I just can't bring myself to really like be like mad at anyone for anything right now. Like in the space that we're in the space that we're in, I'm not mad at anyone.
Is it just a space here?
What's the point of like getting mad? You know? And obviously there is a point for emotion, right? But what's the point of
being stuck
staying
there?
mad?
Yeah, stuck there.
It's like, okay, yes, feel away, but like there's a way that we're humans, we can communicate things, right? Like, let's talk about it and let's get to some kind of resolution or some kind of understanding is my goal, right? It's like understanding.
Right, so we don't repeat, that's what I'm saying, like, so we don't repeat this process.
Yeah.
And we can just
in relationships, in friendships, in society, it's like, you don't have to agree with me. I'm not trying, that's not my goal is to get you to agree with me. My goal is to see my side and I'm so curious to see yours as well. Like, that's where I'm at. It's like, I want to see yours. I want you to want to see mine. And I feel like that's what will progress society. Not us just agreeing with each other. It's understanding what we are where we're coming
like finding
from.
those pieces that do mesh once you do that.
Yeah.
I feel like a few things happen though. Like maybe I could be wrong, right? But I'm trying to think of that same situation you said where it's like I want to feel mine and then I want to hear yours, right? So by expressing mine verbally or communicating it with somebody else, I'm kind of really feeling out my own. And then after I'm like done, or if I let you go first, however it goes, then I'm making room for you to do yours, and I want to hear yours.
Is it weird that when you actually say things, you get to think about it differently than how you do
So
in
have you
your
ever
head?
experienced this? Because I just think about like relationship-wise, like this like stupid or like what like in retrospect like dumb arguments we've had, right? Like at least I come out of it like feeling like I know you a little better, or like we understand each other a little better. Even if it was something really dumb that we were arguing over, we expressed ourselves and we talked about it, like, and we get to a point where it's like we took that step up the ladder, like, oh wow, like I didn't know that about you, or you know,
and it turns into how small that was, or like,
exactly. And do you think that applies to like society? Is like if we were to do that with each other, with people we didn't agree with in society, we would level up instead of just going to the people we agree with and locking arms. Right?
That's what I was just about to try to get to when I was explaining my side. I was saying like it's weird though because I feel like sometimes like when I start hearing people explain their position, I start hearing them and in my head I'm like, wow, I already know what they're about to say and I've already heard this. And I feel like that happens to me so often. Is that a lack of
someone that's not being authentic, you think? Because I think authenticity, you think that anybody will have a perspective that should get you to think.
I won't even put that on them. I just, in my head, I'm like, I was open to the idea that you were going to bring up something that I haven't thought of, maybe. And then when they start saying things that I've already heard a lot of times, and I'm already like, you know what, like.
I guess with those people, they're more so teachers with if you keep them around in life.
I think what you're expressing is kind of an ego thing of like maybe the purpose of the interaction is not for them to teach you something. Maybe they've never heard your side, right? And like, yeah, you're thinking in your head like, I already know what you're gonna say, I've already thought about this, but they've never gone to where you're at.
And sometimes when you help that person, they give you a new perspective now. We had okay, because this brought me into a conversation we had before, because I remember I was saying like sometimes those people might not know what you know, but once you let them know what you know, you'll be surprised what their next question might be.
Yeah.
That next or third question might be the question that gets you to be like, oh shit.
And that's
like, now that you're here, it's like
That's
That's what you
collaboration.
like, that's what you would want, and that's something that sometimes I think that I'm walking into, but then when I start
it's
saying
still
things, I start realizing, oh, dang, this
But you don't think
person
that's
thinks...
your doors closing, your walls going up? Like, you don't know, like, where, if you still, like...
Well,
Right.
if the person starts telling you, you know what, Toad, I think the school system, the education system has failed you. I don't think, you know, I think, you know, you're just... I don't know. I just don't think that none of that stuff is possible, and you know, I'm like,
that's yeah.
and I'm like, oh crap! How far back do I gotta go before we diverged timelines? And I'm like, and it just so happens that I feel like when I start having these conversations, sometimes I start realizing, oh man, I don't want to have this conversation no more because I don't know where that's gonna. Like, I don't want to have. I don't like that.
When was your guys' first unplugged then? Like, as far as like.
My first experience was watching Illuminati videos on YouTube,
I used to
and
watch
then going to my brother and being like, bro, guess what? Dude, you don't even
That's
know.
what they're doing. Like, yeah.
No, check this out. I told him, I was like, bro, this is happening, and then he looked at me and he goes, bro, why do you believe everything you see on the internet? And I was just like, I just lost it. Like, at that point, like, I feel like I literally, like, combusted.
That's so funny.
So then I would come back to him with, like,
More
new
and
things.
more, yeah.
And he always had kind of something like,
I did the same thing.
yeah, dude, like,
Now my brother believes
he had already been there. He had already seen, he had already heard these things and had made construed thoughts about it. So I had someone to kind of, like, bounce shit off of. And then, like, at a certain point, I was just, like, trying to do that with, like, my friends and shit and stuff. And I just realized, like, man, like, I don't know what's going on. My aunt kind of woke me to one time, dude. Like, you know, I was, like, maybe a sophomore in college. I had just finished, like, Texas history. Or I was, like, taking Texas history. And I'd come back down, like, home for the weekend, and I saw all my family, or, like, most of my family or whatever. And I was hanging around my aunt, and I forgot what the hell I said about the border. Something about where the border was supposed to be or something like that. They had taught us that in like Texas history.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said some shit that was like, I don't know what she said, dude, but like that aunt has always been super freaking cool with me. She's never been like any type of way with me that I'm like, you know, this was the first time that I felt like in a way kind of low-key disrespected. She said something like, you think that all the stuff that they teach you over there like is true, right? Or something along those lines. And I was like pretty upset at the time, like in my head, not to her, cause like, you know, like, I don't know, I was raised like, nah, like, you don't tell them. And like in my head, I was like, man, she didn't go to college, she don't shit. Like she's literally, you know, I don't even know if she finished like high school and shit. I'm over here like bugging, right? And then you know, the more like research I did and the more like I started learning about stuff, I was like, dude, they straight up did lie about that. Like, you know, there was like a big war fought over where the border was supposed to be, and it was supposed to be at this river, and then out of nowhere they're like, nah, it's gonna be the Rio Grande River, whether you like it or not, and all this stuff. And it was like the one that I thought they had told us, it was like this one in between the Rio Grande and I forget the other river, dude. But it was like one in the middle, and she's like, nah, it was like in her head she knew it was this one.
Yeah.
Was it the Nueces?
I think Nueces was like
Or the Colorado River?
I can't remember. And she was like, nah, like we were up, like, you know, and